Come down. Ooh, you make my high come down. Always tripping when you come around. Never have to cut you out like right now. You see, I don't have to drive me. You can say that for your mama. Maybe you should smoke some. Me try the marijuana. I was never you good. The vibe was straight. Showed you a couple of things and they feel strange. I treated you right. Everything was a gift from a time to your bag and the color on your lip.
Welcome to the Seahawks Man to Man podcast, powered by Blue Wire. Shout out to the new company. My name is Michael-Shawn and You guys can follow me on whatever Elon Musk is calling that app these days. My @ name has not changed. It's at Mike Dugar, MikeDugar. Make sure you like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Seahawks Man to Man is the name of the channel. Same thing on Instagram, Seahawks Man to Man, and on TikTok, Seahawks Man to Man. That is Seahawks Man, the number 2 man. We appreciate all of the love and support on all those platforms. Even if you just listen to audio, just doing those things, liking, subscribing, sharing, we really appreciate it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Chris, go ahead and talk to him.
What is going on, everybody? It is your boy, Christopher Kidd. You can follow me on Twitter at CKid206, and that's CKIDD206. And yes, to Mike's point, if you haven't yet, jump on over to our YouTube channel. We appreciate all the love and support. We are at 3,959 subscribers. So math says we are 41 away from 4,000. Come on, get us to 4,000. So I know a lot of listeners that are just on Spotify, Apple, iHeart, wherever you're listening. If you haven't yet, go ahead and jump on the subscription on YouTube as well. Again, that's Seahawks Man to Man. So appreciate all the love and support.
All right, this is our post-game show. Seahawks lost to the Bills 31-10. Easily the worst loss of this short Mike Macdonald era. Got beat down, trailed the entire game 1 week after leading the entire game. Shows you how week to week the NFL can be. Chris, I have good news and I have bad news. I'm going to start with the good news and legitimate good news too, not like being sarcastic, just having good news to have good news type of thing. Because I know this people are probably curious about this because of the nature of the loss. I do not think, just based on being there today, being around the team, you know, talking to some guys just in passing in non-interview settings, I do not think Mike Macdonald has lost the locker room. I do not think there's a bunch of infighting, finger pointing, kind of everything has hit the fan type of feeling within the locker room. You know, I don't think that is happening. Could it get bad later? Maybe. But right now, I don't think that's the case. I don't think the team is like on the brink of implosion, you know, with guys like, man, you suck at this, man. Why aren't you doing this? And all of these things, or like a bunch of leaks to the media. You notice even the quotes aren't that bad. You know, it's just guys are upset, but they're not. You know what it looks like when teams throw each other under the bus and there's not accountability. Just watch any Jets press conference, I guess. Isn't it? Probably the way to look at that. The Seahawks are not that. They're not there. I don't think Mike Macdonald has lost the guys or they're tuning him out or anything like that. I know when you have a game with a bazillion penalties on an already heavily penalized team like the Seahawks, and you got Gino throwing the ball at a guy's head because he upset, and you got Jay Reed and D Hall damn near coming to blows in the middle of the damn game, a game that was still in reach at the time, it can look bad. Like, oh my goodness, Mike Macdonald has lost control of these guys. Why do we fire Pete? Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. That last part could be right, but other than that, I don't think. I legitimately, my read on it, without like no one texting me or calling me and be like, yo, Mike, everything's fine. Just my read on it is that the locker room is intact, like morally or behaviorally or however you want to put it. They just got beat down today and they're not playing well, but I don't think all is lost, like in terms of chemistry or like faith or tuning out each other, finger pointing, so to speak. Cool, Chris. How many? We're a few minutes in. That concludes the good news portion of the podcast. The rest is not good at all. I was talking to Catherine Fitzgerald, who we had on the podcast this week, our preview show. She covers the Bills for the Buffalo News. Shout out to Fitz. Love her. She's the best. Was talking to her pregame, and I was like, I think I like these guys big, like the Bills, like big. And I don't think she felt the same way, which is fine. We weren't really like trying to debate, but and I say that I bring that up not to just toot my own horn or whatever, but the bad news is this was predictably bad, and perhaps Chris, even the worst news is one of the fears when you get rid of an established coach with a very high floor like Pete. One of the fears is that the bottom can drop out because you don't have, like with Pete, what are they never lost? They never won fewer than 7 games. That was it. That was the worst Pete was ever, 7 games. And 2 of those are in his first 2 seasons. He went 7-9, and then he had the one where Russ broke his finger and it was 7-10. So you were at worst with Pete going to be 7 and whatever. And that's a very high floor in this league. It is. The fear, though, obviously, when you get rid of him and overhaul everything, is all right. You can now get worse. Can the ceiling get higher? Sure, of course. That's why you even make the move. But the floor can drop out. And Chris, this is a team, not just because of today, but because of all the things that led to today. And then on top of what did happen on the field, it seems very clear that the floor is much lower. Like this could be a team that is perpetually losing like big. Remember they had that long streak with Pete where they didn't lose by like X amount of points. I think it was like no more than like 9 or 10 or whatever it was. Might have only been like one possession, like 8 or something. It was the gist of the streak was with Pete's teams, you were fighting. You had a shot. Yeah, you may have lost by 8 or 9 at the end or whatever, but you were in it, right? It was a long streak. Forget what it was. And that was part of the floor. I do not think this current iteration is I know not trending towards that same way. Because Chris, when you can't stop the run and when you can't run the ball, you can quite literally lose to anybody. Like anybody. Who's the worst team in the league right now? Who's the worst team?
It's
Panthers.
gotta be the Panthers that lost today, and or the Browns won. So technically, they're not one of the worst. So it's probably the Panthers.
The Titans are 1-6 and the Panthers are 1-7. So whichever one of those teams you would like to choose. And they both got their doors blown off today. You can lose to either of those teams if you cannot run the ball and you cannot stop the run. One of my homies, shout out to my homie Billy. He's in Tokyo for work, so he missed the game. I don't know the time difference, but he slept through the game, right? Because he's in another country. He texts me, he says, I'm reading it right now. He says, I woke up in Tokyo to a beatdown. What the F happened? I said, same problems every week. Won't run the ball, can't stop the run. Gino, fluky turnover, ball game. I could have quite literally sent that text almost every loss. I really almost could have. Maybe without the Geno fluky turnover. But for the most part, that's the same problems every week. And those are just fatal problems. Those aren't like little. Every team has some problems. We could run through the top of the division right now, the conference, and every team has a problem. Detroit has suspect pass rush. Washington's offense is not their offense. Washington's defense is a little funky. The Falcons are the Falcons. There's teams at the top who you can question things about them. Everyone's got a flaw. But do you have fatal flaws? And how many of them do you have? That's usually what separates some of these teams. Chris, the Seahawks have 2 very huge ones. Teams can run all over them, and they cannot run all over the other team back. That is awful. That's almost going into a fight when you're not even in the same weight class. That's me and you going to fight a heavyweight. Neither one of us is over $170. We going in the ring fighting somebody that's 240. We get knocked out. Unfortunately, unless we just jump the guy, because there's 2 of us in there. Like that. That's the bad news. The floor seems like it. With the fear was it could drop out, and Chris, it might have dropped out. Because when you can't do those 2 things, how is anyone supposed to confidently come in here or confidently root for the team and feel like they can reach their potential when you can't do those 2 fundamental things with any consistency?
You can't, man. You can't. They just got beat by a good football team. The question was asked last week, are the Seahawks good? And I said, no, they are not a good football team. I don't even know if they're average at this point. We were talking about this off wax. If I had to do a power ranking, I'd probably put the Seahawks probably 20-21. They're just not good. And to your point, running the football, they can't do that. Ken Walker had 9 carries for 12 yards on Sunday. 9 carries for 12 yards. That just shows how bad the offensive line is. And obviously they're playing catch up yet again. Last week against the Falcons, they didn't have to play catch up. They had the game in control. So they didn't run it the way they wanted to. They still had control because they were able to pop a few runs here and there. Unfortunately, against the Buffalo Bills, that was not accessible. There was no popping of the run. Hell, the best run came on a fumbled snap to Ken Walker where he picks it up, runs backwards for a few yards, makes a couple of guys miss, and gains 5 yards. I think that might have been his longest run of the day, if I'm not mistaken. For Ken, that is.
Yeah,
That
I'm
just
looking
shows
at
you.
his runs, and I'm not sure. Yeah, I think you're right, by the way. Yeah, I think he got 13 yards credited, but it's weird how they're counting that. Sorry to cut you off, but yeah, I was
No,
just
you're
looking
good.
at that. I don't know. Let's put it this way. Let's scratch that from the sample, Chris. And I'm gonna read you Ken's other runs. It won't
Oh,
take long, I
this is
promise.
going to be ugly. It's 9 of them, but go ahead.
Ken Walker left end -2 yards. Ken Walker left guard 4 yards. This is the direction that he was running. Is how they do it in the box score. So right there, we've only netted 2 yards on 2 runs. Ken Walker left end 1 yard. Ken Walker right guard for -1 yard. Ken Walker right guard 3 yards. Olu reports is eligible on 3rd and 1. Ken Walker right guard for no gain. And then Ken Walker up the middle, 1 yard. Ken Walker left guard, 1 yard. So those are the other runs that aren't the fumble one is a little funky. But yeah, so to your point, when outside of that fumble, he never ran more than 4 yards all day.
And to be honest, I'm not going to nitpick that much because obviously it's the start of the game. I was really surprised that the Seahawks started off trying to throw the football. I just was stunned that that's how they were going to start the game, considering how poorly they have run the football this season. I was really curious to see, are they going to start the game by giving the ball off to Ken and trying to get him going immediately? And to my surprise, their first couple plays was incomplete pass looking for Noah Fant. Second play, this is another play action pass to Ken Walker that went for a yard, and now you're at 3rd and 9. So there's no chance you're running the football here. It's obvious passing down, and next thing you know, they're 3 and out. And I'm thinking this might be a long day because they got Josh Allen on the other side. It's not as if they have Kirk Cousins, who's not going to be able to move in the pocket. And I talked about that last week. I said, hey, you're going to have to get out to a strong start. And I think they kind of went about it wrong, especially when they don't have DK. Oh my goodness. Watching that game, Katz was not getting open. You know why? It's a little harder when you don't have a 6'4" dude that, as Mike has talked about a lot, dictates coverage. You can't just go man to man and, oh yeah, we're good. Nah, DK is going to win his one-on-one. It's just too hard unless you got an elite corner over there, which the Bills have good corners, but they don't have an elite guy that can just shut down one side of the field and make you say, yeah, we're not going to test that out. And unfortunately, when you don't have DK, I thought, okay, you definitely have to try to run the football. Maybe even start the game in 12 personnel, something that Mike alluded to 2 weeks ago when talked about his one big thing. Hey, maybe this is a time where the Seahawks try to use their tight ends and just go ground crazy. Kind of what the Buffalo Bills did. They did jumbo, I want to say 3 times, and they went big. They had 3 tight ends out there, extra linemen, and they said, we're going to run the football. And that's what they did. And it was successful. I was really stunned that the Seahawks didn't try to do that more against the Bills, considering they didn't have DK. They didn't have one of their best. They didn't have one of their best. They didn't have their best pass catcher, their best receiver on the field. I thought they could have attacked and used Ken more, but as I mentioned, it was too late. You're already down when you're trying to run the football. Again, their first possession was a punt. It's already 7-0. Their next possession, oh yeah, we're going to try to run the football from the shotgun. -2 yards, as Mike already alluded to. Then you're going to try to play action pass it. Oh, you get 4 yards. Now it's 3rd and 8 yet again, and you're already behind. You're playing behind an offense that can get rolling, and Josh Allen is a problem. He has proved it. Yes, the Seahawks did get an interception, but the game was kind of out of control. It felt like. Now, it was still close, but as Mike mentioned, that interception they got, they didn't do anything with it. They didn't gain a single yard. 4 downs, no yards, turnover on downs.
Damn.
That's insane. That's insane to me. You get a turnover on a guy that's been playing nails. Sure, I get it. Amari Cooper might have slipped on the play, whatever. The defender still makes the play on the football. It still picks it off, runs it down to the goal line, and y'all can't get a yard. That just encompasses all the issues they have in the run game and their problem as a team. So that's all I got for it, Mike. Is there anything you want to add before we get to Twitter questions? Because we got quite a few tonight.
Yeah, I think also to the one more thing on the run game, on offense. We'll get to defense and when we get into Twitter questions. I want to say on the run game, I also think that the point you make about like how they came out, part of it is like a lack of execution. Because honestly, both teams tried to play action pass to start the game, and like you said, the Seahawks threw incomplete at Noah on the first one, and the Bills' first play was play action to 88 for 23 yards. I want to say
Kincaid, I believe, one of the tight ends, whatever.
that's either Knox or Kincaid. It don't. I think 88 is Knox and 86 is Kincaid. Doesn't matter for the purpose of what I'm saying. But yeah, so they both tried the same thing. One team got 23 yards, one team got 0. Like even when the plans aligned, one team was just better executing than the other. And the last thing I want to make point I make on the run game is the reason they didn't come out and try to get that rolling is because that's not part of their identity. That's not part of the head coach's identity, and that's not part of the OC's identity. And that also is one of the reasons that the bottom can come out. Because when you don't have that, like when Pete had that, like that was his go-to. Like when push come to shove, that's what Pete defaulted to. Like, all right, we need to settle down. Let's run this pill. Like, and that was a thing. And it keeps your floor high because you can play ugly games, draw the possessions out. Kind of like how remember the Panthers came in here that one year with Darnold and just had the ball forever and just ran it. And that was a bad Panthers team. I think they had already fired their coach, but they were able to play ball control, which that wasn't a good team, but you could keep you in a game. That's how the Patriots play currently. And it just can keep you in a game. That's not going to keep them in every game, but you know what I mean? It keeps your floor a certain way. That's why a lot of coaches play it that way. They know if you come out and try to sling it and you suck at that, you can get your doors blown off and get your quarterback hurt and commit turnovers. So I think you're right. They came out in a way we didn't expect. And I think that speaks to why the floor can drop out. Because when you don't have that, when that's not in your foundation, particularly when you're playing a little shorthanded, like it can get ugly.
It did get ugly.
Yeah, and it can continue to get ugly as we will discuss. So that's the last thing I had on the bad news on the floor and their offensive plan. Because I know we have a bazillion questions about everything else. So let's get to that. I want to make sure that people's voices are heard because y'all spent 3 hours watching that mess. So we want to reward you with some insight.
Well, a lot of questions came in about your boy, our guy, I guess we could say, and that's Geno Smith. Because what more could he do, right? Can't run the football, and you asked me to throw it. How many dropbacks did he have, Mike? Just curious. I'm sure you probably have that somewhere floating around.
Yeah, I can find you that number. Give me
All
a
right,
quick second.
Okay, I'll go ahead and get going with our first question. And this comes from Adrian Sacco. With all the talk of not paying DK, we saw the impact today, on Sunday, that is. A better use of resources would be to pay DK and not pay Gino. Agree? Question mark?
Yeah, no, I don't agree. You should keep them both together if you can. I don't think so. I also think it can get a little dangerous to just pluck someone and say, they're better or worse without that person. Because usually, if you get rid of that person, you make an effort somehow to replace them. Like the Seahawks, if they didn't have DK, they wouldn't just not have DK. They would have draft picks and different players or whatever, or they would have, the roster would just look different. So it's not a total like, oh, pluck. Oh, look, DK matters. Like if you need a DK to not play to see he matters, that's a you thing. I watch him play and I can see that he matters. I also have Geno's drop back number. He had 32 dropbacks today. So not a ton. I think he came into this game averaging like 40 plus. So
well, I can imagine they just said, screw it. We're going to try to run the football anyway. Because what? How many carries did Zach Charbonnet and Ken have combined? I know Ken had 9. Zach had a bunch of just 12. Running into a brick. There you go. So 9 plus 12 is what? 21?
No. Excuse me. Together they had 12. Zach only had 3 carries.
Oh, well, God. Well, it was just rough. So they couldn't do nothing.
It was bad. It was bad. But no, I don't think that this was about DK's value per se. I get the question. He does matter. I want to say he doesn't matter, but they just went about it to how Chris talked about the sequencing. They just went about it the wrong way. Although I don't want to totally fault the approach. Like the play action passing is fine. I spent the one big thing talking about how I need to get involved with that. But I mean, Buffalo watches film too, guys.
They were ready
Like,
for it.
yeah, and they're ready for all of that. And you also eventually you got to be able to run that pill. And whenever you do it, you got to be good at it. So the sequencing was not ideal, but either way, when they did try to run it, they couldn't. And I like what Mike Macdonald said after the game. Someone asked about DK. He was like, "Man, DK wouldn't have been in there on the goal line. Like we're running the ball." And I was like, "Yes, I'm glad he said that because he's right." Like some of their issues were not DK. Like they had 2 drives inside the goal line and scored 3 points. Like that's disgusting. That is disgusting. I know the Connor. I mean, honestly, it was just a really bad series for Connor. Both of them snapping the ball over Gino's head, like just can't do it. He took accountability after the game. He was like, "Yeah, that's on me." Someone even tried to give him an excuse. Was like, "Yo, was the ball wet?" And he's like, "That's not an excuse, man. I'm supposed to snap the ball to Gino. I didn't do that. I got to be better." And then Gino and him caught feet on the other play. I don't think that's like a Connor's bad type of thing. You know, I don't
Just
know enough
unlucky.
about yeah, I mean, get off the ball and move your guy, maybe. I don't know. Enough about the footwork part of it there, but I mean, it's not good. Either way, honestly, if they'd just punched the ball, neither one of those were on first down. So get the ball in before that too. Like they're just clearly not running the ball well. They weren't the more physical team. Greg Russo, was like the best player on the field
Oh my
today.
gosh.
He was everywhere, man. Like he was killing it. But back to the DK thing. You should keep DK and Gino like together. They matter. But I also think we got another Gino question.
We do.
Okay,
We
go
do.
to that next one. I'll probably get to my other point.
So pouty language. What did we make of that pouty language based on what we saw on Sunday? Him just, obviously you're losing. Hell, we played football on Saturday. I'm sure our body language isn't the greatest when we're losing, but your reaction to seeing him on the sidelines, at one point I thought brother was gonna cry. He was just so much just pissed off just because of how things were going. But go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, no, that's a good point. I mean, I don't police body language too much unless it's like detrimental to the team. Like, I think guys can scream, they can cry, they can sit there stoic faced at them, they can yell at the teammate. As long as it's not detrimental, you know. And that's kind of broad, but I feel like we know what that looks like. Like we know when someone's behavior is in a way that's just not healthy for the team. Like I don't think someone because also, yeah, put it this way. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I just don't think it can be detrimental. I don't think Gino's a detrimental guy. Remember, Chris, this is just the same dude last year. He had 2 clips that really stood out. There's probably some that I'm forgetting, but one of them was him encouraging Shane Waldron. I think that was during the Panthers game. It might have been 2 years ago where he's like, "Look, man, I know we're not running the ball, but please don't give up on it, man. We need that run game. Stay with that." Just like encouraging his OC on how he wanted to proceed. And even last year, there was a clip where Jackson looks like someone stole his bike. And Gino goes over there and he's like, "Yo, man, we need you. We're gonna need you. Like, come on, like giving a little pep talk on the sideline." And we've seen Gino be encouraging in all those ways too. So yeah. Should he have thrown the ball in my man's head? No. You should not do that. Do I understand how getting angry to the point where you do that? Absolutely. Doesn't make it okay, but I understand. But in general, I don't think Gino's like a poor sport, bad, sore loser. He just don't like losing, And guys express that a few different ways. Some guys are just sitting there like, "Damn, man, this sucks." Some guys got to crack a joke, lighten the mood. And some guys don't say nothing to nobody. Like, "Hey, yo, don't talk to so and so. He's not having it today." And some guys like, "Yeah, man, we sucked. We got to get better. Move on." Kobe Bryant was like that. I don't know how much camera time Kobe got after the game, but like he was pissed, but like not like inconsolable, or if that's a word. So a lot of guys handle it differently. I don't really care about Gino body language, and that I don't think it's detrimental. He's also pretty accountable too. A little feisty when they lose. He's been a little feisty in these press conferences.
You saw what happened, right? Okay,
Yeah,
next
I mean,
question.
he was feisty with I forget what I asked a couple. When they lost to the Niners, I was like, "Yo,
Oh,
what's up? Why
6
you keep
straight, huh?
losing to these guys?" And he was like, "I was like, why? What's going on? All these losses?" He was like, "How many games we lose today? One, right?" I'm like, "All right, yeah, but I didn't care. I was like, "Yeah, you're pissed. You lost. Like, a little snappy. I don't care." And then today, I think someone asked him what happened on the play where he fell. He was like, "I mean, I thought that was pretty obvious. You saw what happened, right?" And and he was like, "Yeah, okay." Now on that one, I actually agree with Gino. Like, if I wasn't in his press conference today, it went so fast I missed it. But I wouldn't have asked him what happened. I saw what happened. Your center stepped on your foot and you fell. Like, getting Gino's description of it was not going. I wouldn't have used that quote from my story because he would have probably just said, "Yeah, we caught feet and I fell." I saw that. I can write that better than the quote, So sometimes it's good to get the guys' commentary. Sometimes it doesn't matter. So I understand that. But in general, Gino just don't like losing. He really don't. And there's a lot of guys like that, and they handle it a lot of different ways. Some guys never talk after losses. Some guys talk and they're real short. Spoons kind of like that. So I mean, it just depends. But no, I'm not too worried about Gino's temperament per se. He kind of embodied, I don't know, man. There's probably a lot of dudes who probably felt like throwing the ball at someone from Buffalo in that game, man. They was beating up on them boys, man. And the crowd was loud. It was a bunch of Bills fans in there, man. Like, it was, no one likes getting beat up on at the crib, man. So I don't expect everyone to just keep their emotions in check. That's why I don't mind DK. Like, DK be mad when they lose. Good. Good. That's there needs to be some Tyler Lockett's, some Genos, and then some Spoons, and then some DKs. Like, those are all different guys and how they handled getting beat up on like that. I'm cool with all of those ways of doing it because none of them are like, oh, they should trade this dude because he's detrimental.
No, I get it. I'm not gonna lie. After Geno threw that interception on the failed screen and the Buffalo Bills had the ball and they're up 17-3, I thought they were just going to try to run the football and maybe just settle for 3, not try to score a touchdown. Boy, was I wrong. They wanted to just, it's like they just wanted to whoop Seattle's ass and just prove that you're not on the same stratosphere as us, bro. We'll do whatever we want. We gonna run the football. Oh, it's 3rd and 5. Well, we about to just throw it on you. Like, I was expecting them to just take 3 points here. We got a good lead. Our defense is no. I think they wanted to send a message, and they sent a message, 31-10. So that's a tough one. That's a tough pill to swallow for sure. This next one comes from Jeffrey. This is more of a value question. Did DK's value go up more in his absence, or did Geno's value go down more without having a true number one and playing poorly? Also, why did the Seahawks keep D. Williams over Easop Winston Jr.?
Quick on the D versus Aesop thing. We're both Cougs on this show, and Aesop's the homie. Came on the show. Appreciate him. So it's gonna sound biased, but I really feel like it's a genuine question. In particular, I feel like it's a genuine question in the context of they don't trust D to play corner. Like, I really think that's a big deal to me, at least in terms of roster construction. Because all right, I feel like, well, Mike, Chris, D better returner. Cool. I don't agree, but whatever. Even if that was a push, when you get injuries on your team, you need your returner to be able to play whatever his position is too. So you don't have to call guys up from the practice squad or acquire guys, whatever. Chris, they've had Josh Jobe up, Fayon Hicks up. No one on this listening to the show right now know what Fayon Hicks looked like, right? But he's been up and closer to playing than D, and I just think that's a little, they don't trust him to play nickel outside. I just feel like that part is like, they trust Aesop to play receiver, if the difference is negligible, which I think it is. I mean, D's already turned it over twice in 8 games. That's tough. So yeah, it's a little concerning. Anyway, the DK's value go up and Gino go down. Chris, I really feel like it's I'm sure you're at this point too. I feel like Gino's proven enough to me where every game doesn't have to be an indictment of whether he is or is not the guy. I feel like we just have seen so much on film. We've seen so much from a leadership standpoint that every game is not like, ooh, is Gino the dude? Is Gino this? Is he not? Like, when he plays well, like he did last week, I'm not like, ooh, yep, hey Gino. And if he don't have a good game like he didn't today, I'm not like, yep, get rid of Gino. He's beyond that. I feel like other guys are in that spot. I feel like, look around the league real fast, who's like in that type of place where you're wondering if they are, like Will Levis is like that. Sam Darnold, I feel like is kind of one of those guys. I wouldn't even say Baker is one of those guys. I feel like he's pretty solidified. Daniel Jones, I think, is maybe a better example of like game to game. You're really evaluating your long term, future with that dude. I'm not doing that with Gino. Like I've seen him play well enough, and honestly, keep it funky with you guys. Me and Chris try to do this in various ways with our one big thing, or our post game show, or our standout plays. We try to do this. When you watch a Seahawks game and they're bad on offense, it is very rare that you're like, if we had a quarterback better than Gino today, we would have won. It's very rare I say that. Like you usually, when I make a list of reasons why the Seahawks were bad on offense, it very rarely starts with the quarterback stunk. Honestly, Chris, we could probably do this literally for every game they've lost since 2022. I think literally every game you can say, if the O-line was better, they would have won.
Well, Mike, you say the O-line. What does that mean? Oh, running the football. Could they do that today? You tell me how many quarterbacks could come in with the Seahawks running the football, Ken getting 9 carries for 12 yards, Zach Charbonnet getting 3 carries for how many yards do you have? 6?
4.
4 yards. What quarterback is going to stand a chance going against the Buffalo Bills and beat Josh Allen? I'll wait.
It's not even beat Josh Allen. Just be competent week in and week out.
Well, just for the specific game, though. I ain't want to take it further.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at it in the box score. You bring in Patrick Mahomes. What he gonna do? No, for real. What could Patrick Mahomes done better? Sure, maybe that tip screen doesn't happen. Maybe Patrick Mahomes sidearms it, and Ken Walker explodes because I think he beats that defensive end. I think he just makes a miss or just runs by him. But that's neither here nor there. I don't think, to your point, Gino would be the problem in what we've seen on Sunday against the Buffalo Bills. I just can't say that. Now, when I go back and watch the film, I'll probably have a slightly different take. But when I watched the game live, I wasn't thinking, God, Gino is ass today. That just wasn't on my mind. It was, wow, they cannot run the football and they can't stop the run, as Mike alluded to when we started the show. 2 problems that have been consistent, especially when they play good teams. When they play bad teams, yeah, they still couldn't really stop the run. The only exception was the Miami Dolphins because they just didn't have anything, especially when they don't have Tua.
And the Broncos, yeah.
And Mike, the Broncos had 20 points, so they found some success somehow, but
they didn't run it though. They could not run it.
Yeah, they just had a couple of plays here and there that were, but nonetheless, issues. I don't think start with Gino. I will just finish with that.
And this is not a Gino versus Mahomes convo per se, but Mahomes has a much higher interception rate than Gino right now. To your point about making mistakes, this is not. There's just so many other issues. I would point to the play caller. There's a reason why we spent a little bit too much more time than I would thought on Gino, but I think this is a really important point because I feel like we're gonna get this more this season too. There's a reason why neither Pete Carroll nor Mike Macdonald has called for like Gino to play better in the last like 2.5 years. Neither one of them's like, yeah, man, nah, man, we need more from our quarterback. Neither one of them is doing that. You know why? Because they have eyes and they're watching the film and they're looking at blocks being blown and their quarterback having to make something out of nothing. And they're looking at Gino leading the league in dropbacks, which I think he might once again. Like these are not situations for quarterbacks to succeed. Any quarterback, that's it. Yeah, Gino does lead the league in dropbacks, 341. There's only 4 quarterbacks over 300. Gino, Baker, Aaron Rodgers, and CJ Stroud. Like it's just hard. And Gino still is completing 68.8% of his passes. That's actually pretty impressive considering the circumstances. So yeah, I really don't think every game should be like prove it for Gino. For at least for me, it's not. Maybe for the organization, maybe for Gino personally, like to outside people. I don't know, but I don't think it should be because man, we could really spend a whole show just going through everything else that's wrong. Like they can't do anything offensively. They're running like a bad air raid, and you just can't do that. And we've been talking about that for a while now with Grubb. You just can't do that. You can't. This is not the Pac-12. Cannot do that. Your games will look like this. It's just gonna get worse and worse and worse. You just can't. Just can't do it.
This next one comes from DK_Wookie. Maybe an overreaction, but Mike, is it time to tear it down? Get what we can for Tyler Lockett, Geno Smith, Draymond Jones, and some other older players who are not part of the rebuild/retool.
I don't think it's a unfair question or however it was prefaced, because I'm sure there's a lot of people thinking that, because they're just like, dog, we're just stuck in the mud. I understand that feeling. This is trending towards a third straight season of mediocrity.
Mm.
It really is. This is not trending towards like, oh, this team could make a run in the playoffs. I don't think it's trending towards that. It's trending towards like the last 2 seasons trended toward. Ooh, frisky team could get in the wild card. Would it really have a hard time going to who's the number 2 seed right now? Let's say they got in as the 7, and they had to go to Washington. Like, yeah, maybe get frisky. Perhaps Jaden Daniels' first playoff game, but but you wouldn't feel good about that. Now, honestly, the 3 seed is Atlanta. Maybe you feel good about that, but because he just went out there and beat them. But again, that's like maybe you get busy in the first game, sneak out a win, but then you go to whoever the top seed is or whatever and get your doors blown off. Like we see the script, so I don't think that's unfair. I don't unfair question that is though, Chris. I really feel like the time for that, the real answer to that question, I feel like comes next week. I feel like because right now they're 4-4, and let me look at the NFC West. There's 3 4-4 teams right now. The Cardinals, the Niners, and the Seahawks are all 4-4, and the Rams are 3-4. And the Rams looked like a dumpster fire until they got Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua back, and now they look like the greatest show on turf all over again. Like when they got their boys back, they're different. So let's say, Chris, they lose next week. That's projecting that they will, just as a hypothetical. Then you are 4-5, and the Rams are now 4-4. Even forgetting what the Niners or Cardinals do, just then you're probably in last place. And then
Wow.
you've lost your 2 division games. You only have what? Would that be 1 conference win?
Yeah, and that's
I
against the
think.
Falcons.
Yeah, against the Falcons. Yeah, you'd be in a bad, bad, bad place. And I think that'd be what, right before the trade deadline, which I think is the same day as election day. I don't know who
And
screwed
then you
that
got the
up.
Niners the following week. Oh,
Well, the trade deadline is what's important, because if you are just going to trade things off, that's the time to do it. And I
yeah.
think I'm not a huge person on that, but I am a huge person on self-awareness for teams. I do think it's very important for teams to look at themselves and decide, yo, we ain't gonna win none, and get rid of it. Sometimes it really is. You got to do that midseason. Things aren't going your way. Like I feel like Jacksonville needs to do that. Cleveland needs to do that. The Raiders need to do that. Last year, who did it last year? Washington did it last year. They were like, we're not paying Chase Young. We're not paying Montez Sweat. Sell off these assets, reset, get a new Q. Like sometimes teams just need to do that. Sometimes teams are like, oh, maybe we're a piece away. We go from like the Eagles were the 7 seed or something like that, and 2021 lost the wild card round to the Bucks, and then got AJ Brown, added like James Bradbury, and then went to the Super Bowl. Like some teams can go from mediocre to, all right, let's make the jump. I thought the Seahawks could do that at some point. I no longer think that. Like I just don't think that. But I think the real answer to that question of selling off is the Rams game. Not to say being 4-5 is the end of the world, but at some point I do feel it's about being real with yourself as a team. You don't want to just create this false hope based on imagining that everything goes right. Like, ooh, if we do this better and we do this better and we do this better, then we'll be all right. A lot of teams trick themselves into that and they get stuck on the hamster wheel. You don't want to do that. They already don't got no money for 2025 anyway. So it's not like next year is trending towards like an upward trajectory as is. Next year, you're going to have to make a bunch of tough decisions in the offseason anyway, and you'll probably be right back on the hamster wheel. So at some point, you probably do have to hit reset. Usually you prefer to do that in the offseason, but eventually you got to be real with yourself. You could, especially if you get your boot smoked by the Rams. Like if you lose by a field goal or whatever, maybe it's whatever. But if you get your boots smoked, well, I mean, damn. What can you realistically hope for? And maybe you do win a division somehow, like 8-9 or 9-8 or something. And then what? No, for real. Like, and then what? Like, it's you don't. I feel like you want to avoid being who won the division in a fugazi type of way. I think it was the Minnesota Vikings in 2022. I think they won 13 games and had a negative point differential.
That was crazy.
But them fools knew we not like that for real. We not. They knew it. The Giants, meanwhile, didn't know it. They pushed the go button. The Vikings took a step back. Self-awareness versus being stupid. So I think next week is really going to when the Seahawks are going to have to decide: do we have real self-awareness or are we going to be stupid? Like that next week is the real answer to that question.
Well, speaking of the Rams, this is from Awkward Kong. Does it feel like an overreaction to say if the Seahawks get spanked by the Rams, the season is over?
Yeah, I don't think the season's over if you get spanked, but it definitely I think that'll be time to hit the button. That'll be time to hit the button. We can get into the particulars of what hitting the button looks like. We don't want to just get too far ahead. We're focused on post game of the Bills, but no, I don't think it's overreaction to say that it's time to hit the button. Like
this is. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, why not? Why not? You know, I mean, mediocrity is a death sentence sometimes, man. Like I'm okay with like if you're maybe a bad break away, like oh we're this bad because our quarterback got hurt, something like that. You know, it's like things that could maybe foreseeable, like, oh, we lost all our pass rushers in one season, you know, like, or we lost all our DBs. You know, we've seen teams where like they're just decimated and they kind of got to give that year a mulligan. We see that happen sometimes, but this is not. There are some teams who can maybe make that leap from mediocrity, like the Steelers have been trying to live there. But even then, they're not winning nothing either. So maybe they should hit the button too. You know, like you look at some of these teams that's kind of been in that cycle. You know, the Saints have been trying to live there forever. They just keep swiping the credit card. That's the team that would be in too. Don't be the Saints. The Saints are just cool, just pushing all the money down to future and keeping their core. You don't have a core. Your team stinks. Like that's the reality of the Saints. They just don't see it yet. Don't be that. I feel like if the Seahawks keep this path, where their money is set up, the way their GM is set up, you're trending towards being the Saints. And I think you're better off kind of doing what the Texans and Commanders have done. Even though as much as I hate doing that, at some point you have to, otherwise you end up, like the Saints are right now.
This one comes from Thorsten. How would you guys summarize the game?
Well, how about this? You see this cup right here that I'm drinking out of? It says Girl Dad. I don't know who got this for me, but it's a coffee mug. Chris, there is not coffee in here. There is a space dust. I needed it's a beer. It's a strong beer too. What percent is this? 8.2%. Yeah. I needed a drink after watching that. Cause it feels if it was just like this not even good ball for real. Like the Bills didn't even play that great. It really like they did some good things, but I didn't watch them and be like, huh, they might be the best team I've ever seen. I watched them and just like, nope, they're just better than Seattle. You know, and that's obviously all you got to be in any given week. But like they ran it good, they threw it well. They didn't just make a bunch of amazing plays. They were just better. They had a bunch of penalties too. They had 13 penalties. Yeah, more
and
than
they overcame every single one. It felt like. I know I'm not accurate with that response, but they started the game. They started the game. It was like 2nd and 20 after a holding. They throw a screen to Shakir for 15 yards. It's 2nd and 5. That can't happen. They ran the screen every time, and it got 7-8 yards a pop. After a holding, after a false start. That's all I got. Holding, false start. Holding, false start. And you know what they did? Screen, 15 yards. Play action pass, 13 yards. I'm going to attack the seam. First down. God dang. They on the road doing this. That was just, okay, y'all just not executing at this point. They are getting behind the sticks to the point where all you got to do is just, I don't know, be in the right place at the right time. Make it a 5-yard for a screen. So now it's 2nd and 15, still a passing down. You have a chance to get it stopped, but no, the Buffalo Bills got in their own way and found a way to still put up points, which is crazy. I don't know if I've ever seen a game where a team is playing so badly, getting penalties, putting themselves in worse positions, but find their way putting points on the board, scoring touchdowns. that was crazy to watch. I'm glad you brought that up because I forgot about that until you mentioned it.
Well, yeah, to that point, let me see if I can quantify that while we're recording. They played what I'm guessing. I'm not going to watch every Bills game in totality for the rest of the season, but I would guess, Chris, that's probably going to be the sloppiest game the Bills play this year.
I would.
And they won by 3 touchdowns on the road.
Crazy.
That's another way to look at that. Like, yeah, they were just as sloppy. They were just better at overcoming it, which is the difference between a good team and a team that should hit the button. You know, like that was about as sloppy. They had 13 penalties, right? That's what I said. I don't think the Bills will have 13 penalties in the game for the rest of the season. I'm trying to look it up right now to see if they have this year. They probably have not. Like, but yet they were still able to get busy. You know, let's see. Game log, penalties. Yeah, season high in penalties. That's the most they've had all year. They had 11 against the Jets and 9 in the season opener against the Cardinals, and they won both of those games. Today they had 8 penalties on offense and scored 31 points. Like, no, that's the difference right there. I don't even think, like I said, I don't think they played super well. I really don't. It was just the Seahawks are just not very good.
Well, Mike, where do you think the team has improved comparing to last season, offensively and or defensively? And maybe your answer is neither, Mike.
Yeah, I think it's I think they're better at getting pressure on the quarterback. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now. I don't feel like it's worthwhile looking it up. But the Seahawks are still, I think, one of the highest teams in the league at getting pressure. They've been a good sack team in the past, but like their pressure stuff is good. That might be it though. And then on now for it's not. This looks, put it this way, if I put it, this is if you had, I keep seeing this tweet about this lady who's like woke up in a coma after 13 years or something like that, or woke up from a coma after like 13 years. If someone went into a coma after the Seahawks wild card game against the Niners, right? Let's say they boom hit their head, car crash, they're out. They woke up week 1 of this season, okay, and we never told them they fired Pete, right? You think they'd be able to tell that this is a new staff? No, serious. Do you think they'd be able to tell? Oh, damn! What happened? Like, is this a Pete Carroll team?
Damn. Yeah, I think that's self-explanatory. We'll leave it at that.
I don't think they'd be able to tell. They'd be like, oh man, we still can't stop the run. Our O-line's still bad. We still can't run the ball. They'd be like, damn man, we should fire Pete. And you gotta tell them like, hey, nah, we actually did that about 9 months ago. And nothing changed. I won't say nothing, but if things have changed, I'm not gonna just totally ignore that part, but they're all just minor. They just changed. I think we talked about this last week. They just changed the way they got to the same spot. You know, I got the GPS thing on my maps app. When I type in something, I have the little thing that says avoid tolls. So I got hit on that trying to go whatever that is over on the east side, like 520 or whatever. Yeah, I got hit tough. I had a little to go pass or whatever. I was hot. So now I put in avoid tolls on my little thing. So now sometimes I got to go around to get places, but I still get there. That's the Seahawks. They just avoiding tolls to get to the same spot, you know? So yeah, they may have got better at a few things. I think Grubb's a little bit better third down schemer than Shane Waldron. Great. Yay. that don't change much, you know?
They went 1 of 7 on Sunday against the Bills.
Bingo, you know, and the one they converted was I think a mesh to LaVisca, 3rd and 4.
Yeah, something they've run. They ran that when they beat Denver. It was a Tyler Lockett. So that's their money play. That's their, when they need it, it's money.
Yeah.
I think they're 3 for 3 on it.
When Grubb needs some, he runs mesh for sure. That is his thing. That's his bread and butter. Good for him. But yeah, I don't think there's a lot of changes. I mean, there's minor stuff, but the product is the end result. You're still getting to the same place, and in some cases, getting worse.
This one comes from Shiv. Are the Seahawks a bad football team again?
I think they're mediocre is probably the right way to put it. I mean, because they can do some things well enough to beat people, you know, if you get a few breaks right. Like they just won a game by 27 days ago. So I'm not gonna act like they're just god awful. I've watched a lot of the league. Spent a lot of time watching other teams. And And I can tell you there are some definitively bad teams out there. Carolina is awful. The Giants are bad. That's why that loss was so bad. The Saints are bad. Like, that's a bad football team. Yeah, some of these teams are dealing with injuries and stuff. They're just bad football teams. The Jets are a bad football team.
Crazy
Titans
to say that.
are a bad football team. Like, there's no arguing these things. Jacksonville, bad. Cleveland, bad. I think the Colts, when they're led by Anthony Richardson, are bad because he is bad. Like, there are teams like, nah, bro, he's awful.
He was 2 of 15 at one point in the game. 2 of
Dog.
15.
All of his stat lines look like he threw with the other hand. Like, if you'd
No.
have told me AR threw left-handed today, I'm like, oh, well, that's why he was 5 of 20. You know?
He's putting up tour dates. For real.
Nah, yeah, he's disgustingly bad. But those are bad teams. And then I think there's a mediocre little basket. The Chargers are,
Buccaneers.
yes, Bucks, Chargers, Falcons, Cardinals, Eagles, Bears. I would even put the Bengals there. Broncos. I don't know where to put the Steelers. We'll see after Monday Night Football. But the Seahawks are in the mediocre pocket, and then there's the bad. Yeah, even if they lose to the Rams and get smoked, I don't even think that put them in the bad quite yet. Like, bad, I got to see more sustained incompetence for bad.
More badness.
I do. I got to see more bad to declare that they're bad. But Shiv, it's I can guarantee you this. Believe me, this. I'm gonna say this real slow. They are not good. I'll tell you that right now. Not a good team. Not a good team. They are a mediocre team that has good players.
This next one is from Kimwell Santana. Is Grubb a problem?
I don't know if Grubb is a problem. The way I view coordinators, I like this question, by the way. The way I view coordinators, though, is like, do I believe you to be the solution? Because coordinators go through stuff, particularly if you ain't done it at this level before. That's whether you're Shane Waldron and you've been in the league and it's your first time as an OC, or you're Grubb and you're just your first time doing it at all at the NFL level. There's just going to be bumps in the road, even the really good play callers, That said, I don't think it's a coincidence that between Pete and Mike Macdonald, the two best coordinators they had in that stretch were guys who were coordinators before they got the job with the Seahawks. Bevel was with the Vikings, I want to say. Yes, he was. Bevel came from Minnesota. And where did Shoddy come from? I can't remember where Shoddy was. But I do know that at one point he was the coordinator of the Jets. Those Mark Sanchez Jets teams that made a couple AFC title games. I think he was like a QB coach directly before coming to Seattle. But the point is he had been an OC before. That's what I'm getting at. And
he was the quarterback's coach for the Colts.
Thank you. And then his last OC stop was
St. Louis Rams.
Oh, he was the Rams OC. Yeah, that's right. No, you're right.
Yep.
Yeah. So he had a lot of experience. Thank you. And that shows up. It shows up. I believed in Shoddy to be the solution. I really believed in him to figure it out. That's why the firing of him was just I didn't agree with. We don't have to relitigate that, but I just believed in him to figure it out. I believed in Bev too, for what it's worth. I just didn't know as much about football at the time they fired Bev. Now I do. But even at the time they fired Bev, we were just like, fire Bev for. Yeah, we knew that in real time. And then, since firing Bev and Shoddy, the last two OCs have been guys who had never been OCs. And it looks like it. It just looks like it. I don't think that's is Grubb a problem, but if you were apprehensive about them hiring a guy who hadn't done it before, what you were apprehensive about has now come to fruition. They're just not. It just looks like a guy who hasn't done it and is going through the growing pains of doing it, feeling out stuff, trying to anticipate how teams are going to cover them. So I don't think Grubb's bad. I also don't think he's stupid, but his team is not playing well, and his team has a lot of bad habits, a lot of penalties. They're just addicted to shotgun runs. They're not physical. They're not winning off the line of scrimmage. Honestly, I felt like this last week after watching the film too. They should have been able to bleed the clock in the fourth quarter when they were up after all those Kirk interceptions, and they just kept giving it right back to Kirk. Now, it didn't matter because they were turning him over, but, like, they couldn't run for a first down when they're up 17, 20. Like, that was a problem. I didn't want to nitpick it because they won by 20.
The one that won.
But they couldn't run the rock. Not with Ken, who was sick, not with Zach, so that was a problem. Like, even when they got the advantageous situation, like, ooh, we're up now, let's run it. Still couldn't run it. Like, that was a problem, I text Chris when we were about to do our stand-up plays last week. I was like, yo, are your standout plays positive? And he was like, yeah, they won. So of course they are. And I was like, damn, he's right. Because mine were going to be negative. But I was like, he's right. I'm going to spin mine positive. They easily couldn't have been negative because I spotted a huge negative in the second half of the game. Couldn't run the ball. I was like, that's a problem. And I was going to spin it towards that's going to be a problem if they can't run it against Buffalo. Ding, ding, ding. Hate being right. So I don't think Grubb's a problem, but I do think he has one, and he doesn't have much. There's no wiggle room. We talked about this before, I feel like, Chris. A lot of the OCs who got hired this year, like they got hired on teams where it's like, okay, you guys are growing, like you got time. Grubb inherited such a good roster. People want him to just win right now. Go have a top 10 offense today. They don't have that. They have the best offense the Big 12 has to offer. Real, this feels like why I just watched the Colorado game last night. This is what it feels like. It's like watching Colorado game where it's just like, yeah, if they don't bomb, if Shedeur doesn't throw bombs, they lose. They can run it a little bit now, but yeah, man, it's just this exactly what one of my fears was, and a lot of people too, when they hired the UW OC. It was like, okay, is he bringing the UW O line with him? No. Okay, well, how's he gonna fix that? And the answer is, hasn't.
This is from Jamar. Is Grubb too optimistic about the team's ability to run block or just incapable of using 12 personnel?
I really don't even know what Grubb should do, Chris, honestly. I feel like we've been spitballing this whole season. It's the same thing Shane had a problem with. Shane would probably tell you, not out loud, not saying he's ever told me this, but I have had some other coaches and players on offense in previous seasons under Shane be like, what's coach supposed to call if we run it on 1st and 10 and we get 1 yard? What is going to persuade Shane to run it again? I remember I had a couple players tell me that last year when I was talking about the run game. They were just like, Mike, would you call another? They were like, would you call another run? I'd be like, oh, well, probably not, And that's the spot Grubb's in. If Grubb comes out, let's look at one of these drives where they ran it early. Yeah, the second drive.
The second drive.
Yeah. So second drive, cool. They came out, ran it out of the pistol. It wasn't a shotgun run because we hate those on this show. Wasn't a shotgun run. Cool. Ken lost 2 yards. So now Grubb's like, well, damn, y'all. It's 2nd and 12. You want me to run it again? You know what? Bless Grubb's heart. Ran it again. 4 yards. Now it's 3rd and 8. Well, now we got to throw it again. And Geno's pass gets broken up. Now you got to punt. Like, I'm not even, in terms of a sequencing thing, now it's his job to get a better run game, right? Get more out of his players. Like, I don't want to fully excuse that. But that's a perfect example of a sequence where you're just like, well, damn. Now what? There's no way. And, as much as I hate screens, I can see why he calls the damn things because they got that one little joint in the middle of the field, Chris. That one is cash.
That's the JSN on the left side. That worked perfectly. Right up the middle.
Yeah. That one, yeah, they ran it a bunch against the Niners. Like,
yep.
That joint works. All of the other ones, no, for real. All of the other ones are bad. All of them.
To be fair, the other one just got tipped. A little bit unlucky there because Ken's going to...
You make your own luck. You make your own luck. No, for real. First off, Geno's throwing window was blocked right away. Like the dude is in his face. You got to dead that. Throw that in the dirt.
True.
Yeah, he tried to squeeze that. Forced it. That was definitely a forced throw. It's just bad. And yeah, you make your own luck. You put yourself in that position for running the screen. Stop running screens. But I bet you if I was to sit down with Grubb in a candid conversation, I'm like, Grubb, why would you keep calling these damn screens? He'd probably be like, Mike, how am I supposed to relieve pressure from Gino? How else am I supposed to help my O-line if we can't run it? I got to get the ball out quick. How do I get the ball out quick? Screens. And honestly, I wouldn't even disagree with that logic. But then I would show him a clip of all his damn screens. And I'd be like, you want to keep running these, huh? That's what you got, you know? So this is a long-winded way of answering this question. But Chris, I really feel like one of these days we should dedicate a whole show to trying to help Grubb. Because
Well,
I don't know what he's supposed to do when they can't run the rock.
I know you're not a fan of this because you've talked about the movement of the offensive line and getting them out in space. Like, they're not the best guys to pull and run down and block linebackers, because there have been plays where they run that and linebackers are just free because the guards don't make the plays. They're not blocking anybody. They miss, they whiff, they put hands on, and the linebackers like, get off me. But against Detroit Lions, I did like the orbit motion where they sent Ken in motion. He goes behind Geno Smith. And then they had Zach Charbonnet as the lead blocker. By the way, Zach was fined, I think, like 15 grand for that block. So stupid.
That was like 40 G's. Yeah, that was a lot.
Okay.
Continue though.
I think if they can find avenues to run those type of running plays, I think that might be more of a successful attempt at running. And that means going, I think, in 12 personnel, where you mentioned AJ Barner out on the field, Farrell Brown out on the field, Jake Bobo on the field, and DK Metcalf as your two receivers. So you have Jake Bobo and you have DK Metcalf, and then your two tight ends, AJ Barner, and you have Farrell Brown, and then you can have Zach Charbonnet as the fullback, and you can just motion those guys, because those guys are better at moving and getting good blocks. I've seen that on film and agree with you on that standpoint of, hey, you know what? Go 12 personnel. These dudes are better at blocking. That's the way to go. And if he can do the orbit motions and find other motions, even motioning a guy across the field, the formation, and having the tight end or receiver be a lead blocker for Ken Walker, that might open up more space and success in the run game. I've only seen that orbit motion once from Ken Walker this season, and I thought that was really cool. Maybe they can try more of that in 12 personnel. That's just a random thought that I was like, you know what? That might work, but it also might not.
So you know what? Worth a shot. Can't get any worse. Ken's had some stat lines where you're like, damn, dog, did he get hurt? Like, no, for real, he's had a few.
I'm in fantasy, so I had him as my running back. And the second and the third, and I think in the fourth quarter, he didn't see the field. They were just like, here you go, Zach. I'm like, I thought he was hurt. He just didn't play anymore. They were just like, yeah, Ken, you did your best. 9 carries, 12 yards. We're just going to rest you, but we'll let Zach Charbonnet try to do something. He ends up scoring, but go ahead, continue, Mike.
Nah, yeah, he's had a few though. It's like, damn, man, what's going on? I do think last thing on Grubb and the run game is I think two things actually. One, honestly, Chris, the other thing that they could try, which is tough, but nah, it could get to this point. They might have to treat this like Geno is not good. And by that I mean like I don't know how many Packers games you watched when Jordan Love got hurt, like, and they had to start Malik Willis. Like, they were almost damn near running the veer. Like, they were like, we're going to run. I think Josh Jacobs ran the ball like 50 times or something like that in those two games and they won both games, I believe. Like, they just treated it like, you know what, our quarterback's not good, and our whole goal now is to help him. That's it. That's all our team is about, is to make sure he don't got to do much. Yeah, I'm looking at their box score. Their first game without him, Josh Jacobs had 32 carries for 151 yards. And then there's some other dudes here, ran into some receivers a few times. And then in the next game, which I believe they didn't have Jordan Love. I think he had like an MCL or something like that. They played the Titans, and they ran the heck out of the ball. They threw it a little more though this time, but yeah. And they got, looks like some scores on the ground and a pick six, maybe. Yeah, they did. Got a pick six. But yeah, some guy whose last name was Wilson ran it 12 times, Jacob 14. So yeah, then even Malik Willis has 6 carries. They might have to go to something like that. Because right now, Grubb's like, well, the strength of our offense is Gino and JSN and Tyler and DK. I don't even disagree. The problem is that's not working. It's not. It's just not. You almost got to treat it like, yo, team's not good, you know? Like, we got to just change our whole identity to being like a 12 personnel, 13 ground and pound, like Shotty was treating those Jets with Mark Sanchez. They were just like, we about to run this thing. That's what we got to do. The problem with that, though, this is my second thing. That's something it's hard to do that mid-season. And it's harder
it
to do
is.
that. It's hard to do that without a quarterback change. Like it would be very easy to do that if Sam Howell was starting, for instance. But since he's not, it's hard to just do that with Gino, you know? And also that's something you got to establish as your identity, I feel like, in the offseason. And it feels like Grubb just kind of said it to I wasn't there for the meeting, obviously, where he said that, like, oh, this is gonna be our bread and butter, you know. Apparently he said that in like their first meeting. I wasn't there, but if it feels like he was either lying or it just lost his way. I don't know. But I feel like that you almost have to change your whole identity. You can't just think of the run game. It's like this thing you gotta do so you can eventually throw it. Like for this team, it's like gotta be who you are. It really is. Because without it, because when you treat it how they're treating it, you can get your boot smoked any game by anybody.
All right, Mike. This next one is from Mookie Alexander. If the Seahawks completely bottom out, 5-12 bad, do you think John Schneider's job security could be under serious threat entering 2025?
So this has a lot of qualifiers, like do I think, and it could be, whatever. I'll put it this way: I don't know how to read Jody's mind because I've never heard from her. I've only spoken to very few people who have ever been around her, familiar with her thinking, and it's never been to a point where I could ever regurgitate the contents of those conversations on the pod, because it's just so thin. Not getting a lot of information there. I will say, if you put Mike in charge of the Seahawks, they would go 5-12. I don't know if I keep anybody. Because that means now for because they're 4-4 right now, right? So that means they would lose. They would go 1-8 the rest of the way. Yeah,
Yeah, they're 8 weeks in, so yeah.
Getting rid of everybody. You do that. No, for real. But if you're just like not playing meaningful ball before by like Christmas, like if none of your games matter by like Christmas, then yeah, I don't see any point to keep John and his staff. We're forecasting a little bit, but for what? What will be the argument in favor of? You know, no, for real, because there are things about John's philosophy that I agree with, and there are things about John's philosophy that I do not. The main problem in this league, or the main thing you're judged on in this league, is the execution of your philosophy. Like, if you're just like, let's say, for example, Chris, if your philosophy was, I'll never draft a quarterback in the first round as a GM, right? Let's say that's how you thought. That's stupid. However, if you were able to get, who was a second round quarterback? If you were able to get, give me a guy in the second round, Jalen Hurts, right? You got Jalen Hurts, second round pick. And then Jalen Hurts retires. And then you were able to get someone like, give me another guy who wasn't in the first round, Dak. Dak was in the fourth round, I think. Like, but if you were always able to get franchise quarterbacks outside of the first round, then it doesn't matter if your philosophy's stupid because you're getting results. Is your process bad? Maybe. But you're getting your results. And you get results, you get extensions. You get extensions, everyone gets paid. And usually when you're getting paid, it's because you're winning. If you're winning, people keep their jobs. So, like I said, but when you get to a point where it's like, all right, fire Pete and all his boys, you're running the show now, and then you run the show and things get worse. Because 5-12 would be worse. What are we keeping you for? We don't for what? There'd be no argument. In my mind, there would be none. Because that means that a lot of the guys that he spent high picks on would be bad. That means a lot of the guys he traded for would be bad. Can I talk about those trades for a second while we're talking about John?
Yeah.
This won't be long, I promise.
Oh, you're fine.
Chris, I feel like we'd be going crazy. I'll be going crazy sometimes when I think about our show and I think about how we talk about the GM and we think about the moves he's made. Some of the moves John makes are great. Sometimes he is very clearly creating a mess he made. Pete too, by the way. But like you talk about just the GM for a second. Like if you get rid of Bobby, get rid of Jordan Brooks, and you're like, we'll be all right. We don't need either one of them. We'll get Jerome Baker. We'll get Tyrell Dodson. And you get 6 whatever games in, and you're like, nah, this Baker guy ain't it. So you go get Ernest Jones. I'm not about to applaud you for getting Ernest. It's your fault we need him. Like, is Ernest better than Jerome? I don't know. Maybe, probably. Yeah, sure. but you're the reason we need him because you got the other guy. So all you did, it's like when it'd be like my daughter just making a mess and me applauding her for putting it back. It's like, yeah, you pulled the milk out the fridge. So yeah, grab a paper towel and you know what I'm saying? I feel like that's a lot of the John tenure. It's like, ooh, man, look at this great move by John. He recognized the deficiency and he addressed it. Well, why is it a deficiency? You know? Him and Pete, I feel like we're doing a little bit of that where it's like, ooh, look at that mess he cleaned up. Oh, look, they had this issue, so they went and got this. Like, oh, look at this Dwayne Brown trade. Well, why did you need to trade Dwayne? Because the only other left tackle you had was George Fant. You know, this was when he wasn't that good. You know, blew his knee out, and all you had was Riso Diambo, and so you needed George. You know, it's like it's stuff like that. Like even the Clowney trade on paper was like a good deal. They only gave up him, and they gave up like Jacob Martin, Barkevius Mingo, and like a 3rd round pick or something, and they got Clowney. Ooh, that was great. Well, why did you need a pass rusher? Because you traded Frank. You know, reward you for what? Okay, sorry, rant over. No, I wouldn't keep John if they bottomed out. Sorry, that was a long way.
You're good.
In that. I just need to get that off, man.
This is from Tough Guy Football. What is Leslie Frazier's role in assisting Mike Macdonald during the game or during the week?
I don't know Leslie's role. I think he's more like actually I kind of have an analogy for it, but Chris, honestly, I want us to keep this question because the framing of it is hilarious. We're already at the point where it's like, hey man, what does some of these guys do here? It's like, yo, what does Leslie
you got
do?
all these dudes. What's going on?
Yeah,
How are you helping this roster? How are you helping this team? What are you doing?
He said, yeah, what does Leslie do exactly? I think that's probably specifically because, like, yo, this is the team Leslie used to work for, and you know they over there, you know, belt the ass over there. The best way I can describe Leslie's role is he's like an assistant to the head coach. Like he's there to help. You know, my analogy is, Chris, you remember them Samsung commercials when Jay-Z was about to drop Magna Carta Holy Grail in 2013?
Yeah.
They had those like commercials with like Rick Rubin, not Rick Rubin. Maybe it was Rick Rubin. It was like him, Swiss Beats, Timberland, they were all making the stuff. And they had the white guy on the couch, the bearded white guy. And I remember Kanye did an album with him, and it was like, what was his role? Like, how does he help you with the album? I think it was Rick Rubin. I gotta look that. He looked that up for me, Rick Rubin, if that's the name. But Kanye was like, he's not a producer, he's a reducer. And he was saying that he goes in there and basically edits it down. Like, take this out, take that out. Nope, that idea is bad. That idea is this, right? And I feel like that's kind of Leslie's role without getting too much into the details. It's like to tell Mike Macdonald, that's a good idea. Keep that. All right, well, yeah, don't do that. Take that out. Let's tweak this. You know, like when he's already deciding on things, though. You know, that's like my read on it. I've not talked to Leslie specifically, but Mike's been asked about it. That's kind of how I look at his role when I think about what does Leslie do here. It's not a producer, more like a reducer, like making sure Mike has someone he can, because Mike like in theory knows what he's doing, like Kanye does when he's making an album, but he still goes to somebody else to be like, hey, what do you think? That's kind of how I view what Leslie is to Mike Macdonald.
Got you. So yeah, you're right. It is Rick Rubin.
Okay, I thought it was. He looks like Santa Claus, hippie Santa Claus.
I just seen a picture of him. I'm like, oh yeah,
yeah, distinct looking dude. Yeah,
he's helped a lot of artists, so he is definitely big time.
Oh yeah, he's the guy. Yeah.
This next one comes from Tanner Cockerill. So we're going to see a huge roster construction head into next season, aren't we?
I mean, I don't know their total cap space situation, but it's not great. That was the other thing why I felt like they really needed to not look at this as a rebuild, is because they don't have, like, you're all in for this year and kind of next year. Like, I think they're already in the negative for next year. Let me look at 2025. Yeah, they're in the hole by a few $100,000. Which isn't the end of the world, but it's not like they're flush, right? Like they're not like this team that has like this clean books going forward. No, you're in the hole already. You're one of like 3 teams in the hole too. You're not like the Saints. The Saints are 80 million in the hole. That's ridiculous. You know, but you're just a little in the hole. You can get out of that hole, but it's not like you have a bunch of room. You're gonna have to make some tough decisions in this offseason. So you might as well win as many games as you can. But like we talked about, if it gets real ugly, you got to press the You got to press the button. I don't know. The answer to that, I don't know. I think if John is still in charge, you're just going to get stuck on the hamster wheel. I just don't think he believes in a teardown. I'm not even from his perspective. I don't know if he should unless he gets the green light from Jody, which would be a tough sell maybe. Yeah, I don't think we're looking at a massive overhaul. I feel like John's got too good at convincing himself, and sometimes I understand, but he's got too good at convincing himself we're right there. We tweak this, we tweak that, and sure, he could think that if he wants, but like I said, if someone fell asleep after the wild card game and woke up and watched this year, we're like, damn, man, we still can't stop the run, huh? Like, damn, we still ain't got no O-line. What's going on? You know, those are all fair questions, and eventually they just come back to the top of the org.
Rudy Gray, if the Seahawks do move on from Schneider, what does the process of assigning a new GM look like?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta decide what you want to do with all his scouts and stuff. Because like if you punt on your GM in like January, now you're just totally behind on draft prep. You know, all these guys have done all this work and everything. So you got to figure out what you want to do with that first. Unless you just promote from within, which you should 100% not do. If Jody was to ask, no, for real, don't do that. Like if you're gonna go, just go. So you got to decide that. And you're probably you got a couple options. One is to just go completely unorthodox, like you hire like someone completely from like left field, from that comes from like another sport, brings a fresh eye or whatever, a former player who, you know, like it'd be like hiring Sherm or something, like just one of them left field hires, or you just go with like pipeline, someone who's an assistant GM somewhere, someone who's a cap guy somewhere else, someone who's another team's director of pro personnel. It's the same thing when you're hiring a coach. What do you do when you fire your coach? All right, well, who's the hot OCs? Who's the hot DCs? Let's throw in a special teams coordinator for good measure. Same thing when you hire a GM. You go look at other teams' cap guys or their director of college scouting, director of player personnel, pro personnel, whatever their title is. That's the process. I think we're a ways away from that, but it's a pretty simple process unless you just, like I said, you go from left field and you're just like, you know who we're gonna hire? Sherm. You know, like a former player type thing with no experience. I don't think they should do something like that, but I feel like those are kind of the two avenues if you can, the big homie John Schneider.
This next one is from Josh Barnard, or I should say Barnard. Is Macdonald's job in jeopardy?
I don't think so. I don't think you fire Pete and not give the guy a little grace, the guy who replaces him. I feel like you gotta be prepared that it could look like this. Now I'm just thinking again, I don't know how to read Jody mind. Maybe if they go like 5-12 or something, she's like, man, get out of here. Take all your homies with you. Maybe. I don't know her. I wouldn't do that. I feel like you gotta see it through. Even if you bottom out from a coaching perspective. I also just don't think Chris. I don't know if we're on the same page on this, but I don't think it'll get that bad. I think the team is just mediocre. I don't think this is the Patriots. I don't think they're like teetering on being like the worst team in the league. They're just not as good as they should be. I think those
I'm
are
right there
really
with you.
different things.
Yeah, I'm
Those are
right there
really
with you.
different.
I don't think they're a good football team. They're mediocre. They're not average, so they're just meh.
Yeah,
That's what they
it's
are
me.
right now. Meh. Meh can get you 8 wins. Meh can get you 9 wins. While I know Mike and I disagree on the 9 wins, that's okay in regards to Wi-Fi or Pete and that whole thing. But that's me saying they gave him a chance. You know, obviously they made some holes. You mentioned 2 great points, not bringing back Jordan Brooks, just not signing the guy for whatever reason. I don't know why they didn't do that. That would have been, I thought, a great move. I'm sure he's wishing he was in Seattle at this point. No, granted, there is some sunshine out of Miami. Their team stinks. That's just unfortunate.
Yeah.
Bobby Wagner, though,
Oh
I
man,
think
his team on it, man.
I think he's doing just fine with that team. I don't know his stats and everything, but I'd imagine they're winning games. I think Bobby might have a little to do with that. And I can only imagine if he was with the Seahawks, where the defense would be. To Mike's point, oh yeah, Jerome Baker's better than Bobby, and he's younger. As Mike has mentioned before, just because you get a younger guy does not mean he's faster, better, all that good stuff. It don't mean nothing until you get on the field. All that stuff sounds good. He could be faster, but does he know where he needs to be in certain positions? Is he a little light on the feet? Is he able to dissect things as they develop? Does he know a play that's going to happen before it's snapped? Bobby was known for, hey, the play's coming here, be there. And the guy gets there and the guy makes the play. It might not be Bobby making the play, but he also puts his guys in position. You had the great explanation against the Patriots. Who did he put in position to flip over Cam Newton when Cam came to town? Seahawks,
LJ.
Patriots. Perfect example. Hey, LJ, right here, right here. Where does Cam go? Right there. Bobby doesn't make the play, but Bobby studies film. Bobby knows what's going on. He's able to decipher, oh, this is what they're trying to do. Get there. You'll make the play. The Seahawks don't have that. They just don't have that right now. Could that help them, especially in the run defense? Oh, I think so, but that's neither here nor there. This is the bed that they made, and they now have to try to make do for where they're at as a 4-4 football team. And it's not going to get any easier. Their easy part of the schedule is over. Their little honeymoon phase is done. Now you're getting into the grind. You're going back to work. You're trying to figure out how can we get better week in and week out, and they haven't done that. They won last week against the Falcons, against a meh team, okay team that was playing pretty good football. They had won 3 straight, and the Seahawks had lost 3 straight. Someone's got to lose. It was the Falcons. Let's see. This next one comes from Andrew Cordy Simpson. Structure and discipline are coaching problems. If you were to make one change you felt could create some consistency and belief in the team, what would your move be?
Oh, that's a good question. I do. So I would combine. This is dangerous. There's no fix. There's no easy fix. I should throw that out there. I would perhaps I would consider moving Mike off to play calling, just so he can maybe have a more feel on the rest of the situation. I don't think he's like a bad play caller or anything, but it's not going well, clearly. And the other thing, I feel like they almost have to overcorrect a little bit, like decide, hey, we're just going to dedicate everything to making sure we don't get run on. Like you just have to. You have to. Because right now it feels like they're like, all right, we can do the run and still not give up the explosives. It's like, no, you can't. You're gonna have to really sell out. You have to sell out. You know, and that's dangerous because then you're like, that puts more. Well, not even blitzing, but it puts your corners in more situations when they're on islands.
That's exactly what I mean, Mike. They're gonna have to send more guys. You have to put more guys in the box. There's no other option. You can't rely on Jordan.
Yeah, I'm not saying you got blitz though. I'm not saying you got blitz. Just put more guys, more bodies. But that might be a lot more of
8 men in the box every play. There you go.
Yeah, when it allows. But yeah, it is dangerous. Not saying there's no easy fix, or Mike Macdonald wouldn't have done it. He knows more ball than me. And then I would do the same thing on offense. It'd be like, you know what? I would take the playbook. It sucks because everything's probably digital now, but I'd get like a physical copy of the playbook and just like light that joint on fire at the next team meeting. Like not to throw out every play, just like symbolically to be like, yo, we're starting fresh. We have to. And just like burn the playbook, you know, and be like, yo, we gotta this is who we have to be. We gotta treat it like the thing that's gonna make us better is pounding this pill and running this ball. We gotta do it. And the way to do that, I think, is to treat it like I was saying with the Malik Willis example. It's like, yo, let's pretend our quarterback stinks and we got to help him out. Because right now they're pretending that their quarterback can get busy despite the circumstances, and boy, that is just not true. He's good. Gino's a good quarterback, but they're treating it like they're making him have to be Superman, and he's not that. No quarterback is that consistently. You know, even if the quarterbacks you think are that, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, we've seen all of them get smoked. We've seen all of them get smoked. You know, so I feel like that's not one change, but I feel like they almost have to overcorrect. Now that leaves you exposed in other areas, but I just feel like the last thing your team can be is deficient in these 2 areas, not stopping the run and not running it well. I feel like that's guaranteed to get everybody fired at some point.
I think they just got to find their identity. If I'm the head coach, I'm asking, what is our identity? I'm asking the team, what is our identity? 8 weeks in. If no one has answers, to your point, Mike, we're going to have to start from scratch. Defensively, offensively, because we got to know who we are. You're 8 weeks in and you don't know what type of team you are defensively, offensively. Yeah, you get great pressure. We need some sacks now. Now, Josh Allen, I know that's a different type of beast, so that's more of a challenge. I thought they did a decent job, but coverage was breaking down. Dude was open. So, it's great that we're there, but now the coverage breaks down. So I would have to say identity. What are we? Who are we? And that is the next meeting. That's what I'm asking. What are we, guys? Who are we? Jay Reed, who are we, man? Shoot, coach. I'm not sure. Yeah, that if we don't know who we are, then we have to reset things and figure out what we want to do and go from there. Because through 8 weeks, what we're trying to do is not working. I'm watching the film. Mike's watching the film. The coaches, the players, they're all seeing whatever they've tried to do, it hasn't been successful. And it has you where you are. And you guys are saying that you're capable to be better and all this great stuff. Okay, well, then now it's time to hit the reset button. And I think it's fair. It's halfway through the season. Now is the time to do it. After this week, it's a little too late, especially if you lose to the Rams. You're in a really bad situation. You're 4-5. You're probably in last place in the NFC West. You're in a hole because then you got the Niners next week. Not to jump too far ahead, but they start piling up on one another, and you already lost to the Giants. That is a terrible loss that you just can't make up for now. So, identity for me. This last one, Mike, comes from Spoon Season. Do you guys think it's possible for the Seahawks to have some improvement on stopping the run, or is this going to be an issue for the rest of the season?
Yeah, I think it's possible for sure, but I do think it's just going to come at the expense of something else. That's just how football works, you know. When you have some, that's why it's so bad to be towards the bottom of the league in something that is so critical. You know, like there are some teams who are like that are even good that are having this issue, like the Ravens. Use a good team for example. The Ravens, I could drop back to pass and probably complete a ball to Chris against the Ravens. That is how bad their pass defense is. Like that's huge. That's a huge issue. They're not going to win a damn thing if that's their issue. It's a fatal flaw, you know, and they can't get any pressure on the quarterback, like at all. And they're a good team and they have that issue, you know. The Texans, they're going to get CJ Stroud killed behind that O-line. And that's a good team. And I don't know what I think Diggs got hurt today too. So they got a bunch of issues. But like even the good teams like have some issues. But when it's something like, hey, no, everyone just runs all over us. Yeah, you got to overcorrect to get that. You can't. They're gonna try to fix it within the framework of their system for sure. But I feel like Mike Macdonald, that is gonna get on that bye week. He's gonna be in that. He's gonna be in there, and it's gonna be like a turning point of a movie. He's gonna sit there and be like, "Damn, we're gonna have to sell out and stop this," because it's not as simple as, "All right, let's do this within the framework of our system of who we are and our principles and our rules." Ideally, yes, that's what you should do. I believe that 100%. The problem is you don't really have time for that. You don't, and it's just not working. Maybe more games with Ernest Jones and Roy and Kobe getting his feet wet. I don't think like Kobe's the problem per se, but like I just think maybe you could try to wait and feel it out some more. But man, we've been watching them not be able to stop the run for this is 3 years in a row. Because they were like top 5 in run defense their last year with Ken Norton. They were elite. I think they might have been top 2, at least by yards per carry allowed. It's like 3 point something. Them and the Saints, they were nails. And then they've just gone to hell after that. No matter what they've done, they've just gone to hell. 2 high, 1 high, don't matter. Yeah, bare front, nickel, dime, don't matter. Penny, don't matter. So I think you can improve. Yeah, I don't think there's anything you just can't improve. You know, because you are what you emphasize. What you emphasize, you'll correct eventually. But it's do you do that at the expense of something else? Like the Ravens, they're probably to fix their passing issues. They're probably gonna have to sacrifice their run defense, which I believe is decent. I think it's actually one of the better ones in the league. There's just give and take. But that's the problem when you're so deficient in an area. Like the Seahawks, I feel like they got to overcorrect on offense. Like you got to start running the wishbone. Because like treating the running game like a side dish is not working. It's got to be the main course. So I do think they can improve, but I do think it's just going to come at the expense of something else. That's how you become like what do you say, Chris? A meh team.
Yeah.
That's what the Seahawks are. We'll end on this. The Seahawks are just like a Toyota Camry. Like it's a cool car. It's not a bucket. It's not a beat up car, but it's not like a Rolls Royce. Like you see a Camry driving down the street, you don't think nothing of it. You're just like, oh, it's a car. You're not like, damn, that car's trash. Or like, whoo, you see that joint that just drove by? It's just a car. That's it. It's gonna get you it's gonna get to wherever that driver needs to go. Maybe it has some nice stuff on the inside. Maybe the seats is nice. Maybe the heat up. Maybe the sound system decent. But it's just a car. It's not a Bentley, Cybertruck, something fancy that's it's considered elite, premium, luxury. It's just a car. It's just meh. It's not bad. It's not good. It's just a car. And that's the Seahawks are. It's just a car. A Camry is clean on the inside. All the heat work, all the lights work. Check engine light ain't on. That's not a busted car riding on a spare like you'll see. It's just a car. They're a Camry. They're Altima. Nissan Altima. That's it. Nice car. But it's just regular. And that's cool. I mean, they just been that for a little bit. And at some point they gotta decide whether they want to do that or upgrade. And that's kind of where they are right now. Even if they beat the Rams, they still might have to make that call. But like right now, with the issues that they have in the trenches in particular, honestly, I feel like the run game isn't even the trenches that much as the second level. But either way, with the issues they have, it feels like an inflection point is coming. Today was like step one. I feel like today was really step one for that, particularly to get their ass beat the way they did. Next week is step two. And then you got the bye week. I'll be in Jamaica, but these guys will be at home having hard conversations with one another during that bye if step two doesn't go well. And yeah. Hopefully it doesn't get to that point, but because of all that we've seen over the last couple seasons and what we've seen from this new staff, it does feel like, an inflection point is coming. Whether they improve in some areas or not. And he's got to decide whether it's time to push the button or whether they can actually hit the ceiling they were hoping for when they hired Mike Macdonald.
Well, there you have it, man. Those are all the Twitter questions. We appreciate all the love and support. Man, Seahawks got their teeth kicked in 31-10 at Lou, at home. How do they respond? Well, we'll have to wait a week, but we definitely will have more content for you. We'll be chatting with Jordan Rodriguez of The Athletic, who covers the Rams because that's the Seahawks' next opponent. We'll also be doing One Big Thing as well. That drops on Wednesday. And, of course, on Friday, we'll have some yucky plays that stood out to us, and we will break them down as to what went wrong. So make sure you follow Seahawks Man to Man on TikTok. Make sure you follow Seahawks Man to Man on Instagram. And to all you listeners, all thousands of listeners that have downloaded and listened to these episodes, please just go on to YouTube and subscribe. I know you're listening right now saying, damn, I still haven't. Yeah, go ahead and do it right now. Thank you so much. Mike, is there anything you'd like to add before we get out of here?
As always, thank you so much for the love and support. We really appreciate it. As Chris said, we will catch you later in the week. Enjoy your week. Peace.